Good morning, grade 5. Welcome back to grade 5 mathematics class. How are you all doing today? Today let's learn how we can divide a fraction by another fraction. So what are the steps involved? Let's see the steps first. See, in a division you have a dividend and a divisor. So when you divide a fraction by another fraction, you will have a dividend fraction and the divisor fraction. So what you have to do here is, first you have to find the multiplicative inverse of the divisor fraction. And the next step is to multiply the dividend fraction by the multiplicative inverse of the divisor fraction. So let's see the steps once again. Find the multiplicative inverse of the divisor fraction. Then the dividend fraction has to be multiplied by the multiplicative inverse of the divisor fraction. So let's make this more clear with an example. Look at the question here. Divide 5 by 8 by 15 by 9. So you have got two fractions here. Here we have the dividend and here we have the divisor. So the first step is to find the multiplicative inverse of the divisor fraction. So which is the divisor fraction here? 15 by 9. And what is its multiplicative inverse? The multiplicative inverse is equal to 9 by 15. The numerator and the denominator gets interchanged. Now, the next step is to find the product of the dividend fraction and the multiplicative inverse of the divisor fraction. So, we are going to do that now. So, 5 by 8 divided by 15 by 9 is equal to 5 by 8 into 9 by 15, the multiplicative inverse of the divisor fraction. Now let's cancel out the common factors from the numerator and the denominator part to make the calculation easier. So this becomes equal to 1 by 8 into 3 by 1, which gives you 3 by 8. So what is the answer? 5 by 8 divided by 15 by 9 gives you the result 3 by 8. So this is our answer. So children, I hope the steps are clear to you. Now we will see a word problem. So look at the question given here. A man spends 1 by 5th of his salary on house rent and half of the remaining amount on transportation. If he spends rupees 5,000 more on transportation, then what is his salary? So let's first write down the steps based on what all is given in the question. So we are told the fraction of salary that he spends on house rent is equal to 1 by 5. That is 1 by 5th of his salary. And if he spends 1 by 5th of his salary on house rent, how much is remaining? 4 by 5th of salary is remaining. And out of this 4 by 5th of his salary, he will spend half of it on transportation. So what is the fraction of salary that he spends on transportation? That will be equal to 1 by 2 or half of 4 by 5, and that is equal to 2 by 5. So the fraction of salary that he spends on transportation is equal to 2 by 5. So now we know the fraction of his salary that he spends on house rent, and we know the fraction of salary he spends on transportation. It is said in the question that he spends rupees 5,000 more on transportation. So from this, how do we find out what is his salary? See, the fraction of salary that he spends more on transportation. How do we find it out? We know the fraction of salary spent on transportation, that is equal to 2 by 5. We know the fraction of salary spent on house rent, which is equal to 1 by 5. And if you take the difference, you will get the fraction of salary that he spends more on transportation, and that equals to 1 by 5. So this means the extra 5,000 rupees that he spends on transportation is equal to the 1/5 of his salary. So this means 1/5 of his salary is equal to 5,000 rupees. So from this, how do we find out what is his salary? We need to find out what is his salary. So when you cross multiply, you get salary is equal to 5,000 into 5 by 1. So when simplified, it will give you the answer rupees 25,000. So what is his salary? His salary is a total amount of 25,000 rupees. So children, I hope the question is clear to you. Now we will see a few more examples. Look at the question here. This is from the Target Olympiad exercise given in page number 74 of your textbook. So the first question says a box contains 72 apples. 8 apples in each dozen are good and the rest are rotten. What fraction of the total apples are rotten? So what is mentioned in the question? It says a box contains a total of 72 apples and 8 apples in each dozen are good. So what is 1 dozen? 1 dozen equals 12 numbers. So if there are 72 apples in total, how many dozens are there? 72 apples will be equal to 72 divided by 12, that is equal to 6 dozen apples. Now it says 8 apples in each dozen are good and you are asked to find out the fraction of rotten apples. So if in each dozen 8 apples are good, how many total number of good apples are there? If 8 apples in each dozen are good, what is the total number of good apples? It will be equal to 8 into the total number of dozens of apples. That is 8 into 6, which is equal to 48 apples. So out of the 72 apples, 48 apples are good apples. So how many are rotten apples? That will be equal to the total number of apples minus the number of good apples. That is 72 minus 48, which gives you 24. So now we know the number of rotten apples. We need to find the fraction of rotten apples. That will be equal to the number of rotten apples divided by the total number of apples. And that is equal to 24 divided by 72, which gives you the fraction 1 by 3. So this is the fraction of rotten apples. So I hope this question is clear to you. Let's move on to the next question. It says a merchant pays duty on certain goods at 3 different places. At the first place, he gives 1/3 of the worth of goods. At the second place, he gives 1/4 of the remaining amount, and at the third place, he gives 1/5 of the remaining amount. If the total duty paid by him is rupees 1020, what is the total worth of the goods? So let's first write down the steps from the data given in the question. So in the question it is mentioned that the total worth was divided into 3 equal parts and one part out of the total 3 parts was given as duty at the first place. And how much was remaining? 2/3 of the total worth was remaining. And when he reached the second place, from this 2/3 of the worth, he gave 1/4 of it as duty. Now from what was remaining, he gave 1/5 as the duty. Now how do we find out what was the total worth or how many total parts was the worth? So the total number of parts in which the worth was divided into can be found out by the LCM of taking 3, 4 and 5, which are the denominators in the fractions mentioned here. So in the first place the worth was divided into 3 equal parts. Then from what was remaining, it was divided into 4 parts. Then from what was remaining, it was divided into 5 parts. So the total worth was divided into 60 equal parts, which is the LCM of 3, 4 and 5, the denominators in each fraction. So as mentioned in the question, the duty paid at the first place is equal to 1/3 of the total worth, that is 1/3 into 60, which is equal to 20. Now the parts of total worth remaining will be the total part 60 minus 20, which is equal to 40. Now at the second place, 1/4 of the remaining was paid as duty. So that will be 1/4 or 1/4 into 40, and that is equal to 10. Now the parts of total worth remaining at this point is equal to 40 minus 10, which is equal to 30. At the third place, the duty paid was 1/5 of what was remaining, that is 1/5 into 30, which is equal to 6. Now the fraction of total duty paid, that will be equal to 20 plus 10 plus 6, that is the duty paid at each place divided by the total number of parts the worth was divided into, that is equal to 60. So, this becomes equal to 36 divided by 60. When reduced to the lowest form, it gives you the fraction 3 by 5. This is the fraction of total duty paid. The total amount he paid as duty is mentioned in the question, and that is equal to 1020 rupees. So, this means 3/5 or 3 by 5 of the total worth is equal to 1020 rupees. So, how do we find out what is the total worth? When you cross multiply, we get the total worth is equal to 1020 into 5 divided by 3. So, when you simplify this, you will get the total worth is equal to rupees 1700. So, children, I hope this question is clear to you. There was an activity for the day. You have to go through this topic once again, that is division of a fraction by a fraction. Then you have to complete an exercise. You have to complete the exercise 4.6. Then you have to complete the questions 1 and 2 of the HOTS exercise, and you also please go to the speed maths and maths lab activity and also the my project mentioned in the following pages. So, once you are done with the answers, you can submit your answers in Microsoft Teams. So, that's all for today. We will meet in the next class. Till then, bye.